Well, we've been having fun on this series, catching up with the Kings, people that have played with the Sacramento Kings, even current Kings. We've had a chance to catch up with several players over the last week or so. We're going to continue to do that right now as joining us on the Fire Wings hotline. Fire Wings, 21 delicious flavors of wings. Just wing it. We bring in Eddie Johnson. And as we always say, once a king, always a king. Eddie, you're on with Jason Ross and Carmichael Dave. Good morning. How are you?
Hanging in there, guys. How are you?
We're doing the same. I guess we'll start there. How are you managing your time? Everybody's kind of in this lockdown at home, but how have you been able to manage time just being around home?
Well, I'm pretty much a homebody anyway, so it's not a huge adjustment there. But, you just start to, do things you need to do at the house, and just keep yourself busy. Obviously keep up on your movies and your series that you watch and, still get your exercise in. Fortunately for us, we live in an area where we can jump on our bike and get to a bike path that's not crowded and we can ride for miles and miles and turn around and come back home. So we're fortunate there to be able to keep getting our exercise in. And then I have a golf course I belong to that really practices social distancing. And, everybody walks and everybody keeps their distance away from each other. And so I've been able to enjoy that as well. And so, it's an adjustment. But as I tell people, man, welcome to what we grew away from, right? I mean, in this world, over the years, we've had so many situations where people have had to adjust. And this is our turn. Mm-hmm. And how powerful we are in making sure that we do all the right things to make it right for the people in the future is our responsibility right now. And so that's the way I look at it. And so I'm doing what I need to do and my social distancing, washing my hands and encouraging people, especially the young people, to do the same. Because I think some people just don't want to believe. But unfortunately, it's a true deal.
Eddie Johnson with us. Eddie, not to get too serious right away, but my big question is, having not seen it yet, how's the third season of Ozark? And maybe as importantly, how was that Malbec that you were down and with that? I need grades on both, please.
You know what? The funny part is my wife and I, we're stuck in between a few series, right? So I never really watched The Wire as much as I should have. And so I've pretty much been watching The Wire. And we jumped ahead and we watched Ozark that one night, and it was just so good. I said, you know what? We're going to hold off here, and I'm going to finish this Wire. I'm in the third season right now, The Wire. Obviously, it's 5 seasons, and so I'm going to finish watching that. And I just got some things on my docket. I mean, obviously, Ozarks. I've watched Hunters already. Snowfall, if you haven't watched that, is an excellent one. And I got Tiger King on my watch right now, and Ozark. They're the next two up that I'm going to finish off. So we're going to be in this situation for a while. Mm-hmm. So the one thing you don't want to do is hurry up and get rid of everything and watch everything, because I think this is going to go on for a little bit here, and we all have to be patient.
I want to ask you about The Wire, because that's one that I've universally heard everybody rave about, and if you're just kind of getting into it, I didn't watch it when it happened, would like to watch it now. How would you evaluate that present day? Is it still holding up really good?
It's a 10.
Oh, okay.
It's a 10.
But it starts slow, right, Eddie? Doesn't it start kind of slow for you?
Well, what it does, it depicts life, right? So life is kind of slow, right? You got to build up. And so it depicts life. It gives you the storyline. It builds up to it. But the acting is tremendous. A lot of the actors that's in it have gone on to have great careers in acting. And the storylines are just unbelievable. No, it's a wonderful series. Matter of fact, I was laying here watching it before you all called. I mean, it's really impactful. So I suggest anybody watch it. But again, I recommend Snowfall. I recommend Hunters. I recommend Ozark. I mean, there's just a lot of great series out there.
Eddie Johnson with us. You saw the announcement this morning that the Michael Jordan documentary is moving up, and we'll get all 10 episodes of that over the next month, starting in 2 weeks. Spoiler alert! I do know there's at least a clip with an Eddie Johnson, a very young Eddie Johnson with the Kansas City Kings in this documentary as well. I imagine, talk about putting stuff on hold when that comes around. Is that something you're going to be glued to?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that I had a video in there, but I would assume so. I mean, I played pretty much throughout his entire career. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think people will get to know Michael as they probably think he is already, but just don't want to believe. I mean, in order to be great, you got to have a tenacity about you, man. You got to have a competitive spirit about you. And I know Michael a little bit, and I've been in rooms with him, competing in card games and just talking, and he's maniacal, man. And I think people are going to see what made him great. And I think a lot of people don't understand what makes people great. You know, my brother who passed away a few years ago, he always had this saying as I was growing up. He said, Eddie, if there's nothing wrong with you, there's something wrong with you. So, you know, and it was just letting me know that, no one's perfect. And you have to have something on the negative that can turn to a positive if you do it the right way. And so I'm looking forward to that documentary.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Again, coming up on April 19th, they moved up The Last Dance. As we're talking with former King, we're catching up with the Kings, Eddie Johnson. Eddie, one thing for Dave and I, we've been in Sacramento, Dave, his whole life. I've been here a long time. I don't really know a lot about the Kansas City Kings. You are one of the few that were able to play there and then come here. How would you describe the time as a King, but in Kansas City?
Yeah, it was really emotional for me. I'll just speak for myself because I was really enjoying Kansas City. I started my career there. Obviously, Cotton Fitzsimmons drafted me, and I think I'm hearing some background talk, so you all know that's why I hesitated.
All right, we'll fix some things here. Yeah,
when we moved in to Sacramento, we didn't understand what we were encountering, but we made a trip there during the middle of our season. We had one of the worst records, and we were greeted by about 5,000 people at the airport. And we had a practice there, and it was sold out, and more people outside than were inside. And we were simply blown away. We were amazed at a group of people that were cheering for us, and we had the worst record in the NBA. It was just simply amazing. And I think that the Kings fans just grabbed a hold of us right there, man, and we just looked forward to moving there. And I had gotten married that year, so it was a huge adjustment for my wife and I in making the move. But the people in Sacramento have been tremendous. And I still spend time up there. I have good friends still up there. And, to me, it's the best fans in the league.
Eddie, there were a couple of documentaries made after the fight for the team to go to Seattle. And I remember, I don't know if it was Jerry Reynolds. It was someone with the team that was talking about the countrywide trek, from Rochester to Omaha, Kansas City. They said that the one thing I'll never forget, they said that the Kansas City Kings were not only behind the Royals and the Chiefs, but behind Tom Watson when it came to popularity in Kansas City. And going from that to, then they said, people were baking cakes for you guys, showing up at that practice. I believe it was at American River College when you got out here.
Yeah.
That you kind of went into it, but man, that had to spin your head going from no offense to Kansas City, but just going from that environment to this one.
Yeah, like I said, it won us over because, again, we understood why the Kings struggled in Kansas City. We were playing in the arena near a stockyard, man. We'd be driving to the game, and we're hearing animals being slaughtered. I mean, it wasn't a nice sound to hear. We knew that we weren't going to be able to stay there. We were only getting about 2,500 fans. So we knew immediately once we did come to Sacramento and we got that perception that, man, we're going to be in a great environment. We're going to have a chance to win. They're going to really propel us even forward. And that was our mindset after we left there. We had to go back to Kansas City and finish the season. But, man, immediately we started looking at neighborhoods and places that we would live and all of that. I mean, we were very excited about the response that we got when we showed up. It was just tremendous. And we would get some Sacramento Kings fans on the road that, would jump on board right away. And so when we played in L.A. and we played in, like, Golden State, I mean, we would have Kings fans already supporting us. So it was a tremendous feeling, man, just to be wanted because, we were a good team. We were a young team. But, we were in a competitive, obviously, conference. It was very difficult for us. But as you well know, that first year, I mean, we made the playoffs, and that was something special.
Eddie, the one thing of all the years that I've been here and worked with the team, 25 years, the one thing I never got a chance to see was the first building, Arco 1. Obviously smaller, more quaint. You got a chance to play in that. So it's the first time the team's here. It's your small building for, I think 2 seasons before you go into the Arco Arena that most everybody grew to know over time. What was that first building experience like?
Oh, it was unbelievable, man. It just brought you back to your college days, even my high school days, where you just pile people up in there. It was loud. They had those wooden stairs, so they'd stomp on those stairs and making all that noise. You got the cowbells. I mean, it was intense, and it was a tremendous home court advantage. It truly was. And what they did to that place to make it as comfortable as they did, I mean, we enjoyed playing there. Matter of fact, we didn't want them to build a new arena. I mean, we wanted to stay there. Now, I understand, with the salaries that were growing in the league, you had to go to a bigger place, and a place that was going to bring in the corporations. We got that, man, but we thoroughly enjoyed playing there. It was one of the best makeshift arenas I'd ever played in. And I thought we beat the 86 Celtics in that building, okay? The 86 Celtics will go down as one of the greatest basketball teams ever. And with Larry Bird, McHale, Parrish, Dennis Johnson, Ainge, I mean, they were having a tremendous season. And that was our signature win that year. And so
Larry Bird choked.
That building played a huge part in it, without a doubt.
Well, because Larry Bird choked those free throws.
Yep.
That was the crowd got Larry freaking Bird to miss 2 free throws. I was like 9 years old. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got to ask you because I've bitched and moaned about this on the air, and I don't know that I've ever asked a player about this. To your point about that building, and it was a barn, 10,333, the first one, and the first interstate bank signs everywhere, and the big noise meter, and now you have Golden One Center is a palace. It's beautiful. It is a monument to the fans and the community, and I can't say anything bad about it. But now you have all these clubs, and you've got all the big hitters that go in and have some drinks and eat, and they got sushi and all this stuff. And then you notice in the third quarter, almost the whole lower bowl is empty for the first half of the quarter, and I'll oftentimes bitch and moan about it the next day, saying, it sucks because it's almost like a neutral site game until the end of the third quarter when people finally mosey back to their seats. Now, I'm a big fat media guy who's never played professional basketball. For you, do you think that makes a little bit of a difference to the home team, or is it negligible?
No, it makes a huge difference. It truly does. And some fans around the league, they get back to their seats. I know in Portland, they get back to their seats. They're there when the second half starts. A lot of places, they don't. And you're right. Look, the big arenas, they're for the fans. They're not really for the players. Our sanctuary is on the court. Where we were more interested in is how good the court was, how good the lighting was in the building, because we had to perform. The stands in the building, that's for the fans. And so it's a 50-50. I mean, the fans have to enjoy their experience, so we understand why you have to build these big places. But, man, our mindset is on the court. I mean, I had some of my best games in the sports arena down in L.A. when the Clippers played. Okay? I mean, and that wasn't a pretty place. But I loved their floor. And I used to put up numbers on that floor because I was doing my job. So, it's a 50-50 experience, and I think it's important that the fans do enjoy themselves. But you're right, guys. I mean, at a lot of arenas, because of all the things that's going on around the game, fans are very slow to get back to their seats. And I think that hurts teams at times, without a doubt.
Former Sacramento King, as we're catching up with the Kings, Eddie Johnson with us. Eddie, you also work currently with the Phoenix Suns when the games were going, and Suns were having a better season. Kings have been having, both teams were in this chase for for the 8th spot. We have no idea if they'll resume this season. The more and more days go by, it's going to be tough to actually do that. But as we've been trying to speculate, everybody's trying to catch Memphis. I don't know. How did you look at that race? Do you think the Kings and or Suns, Portland, New Orleans, all those teams fighting for 8? How did you think that was going to shake out if, in fact, they did finish?
Well, I think it's going to be close because Memphis they were in the midst of a really difficult schedule down the stretch, and so I think a lot of those teams had a chance that weren't eliminated. It was going to be difficult, obviously, for the Suns, who a little further back. But you got the San Antonios, I think you got the Portlands, and you all that are right there in sight. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the league does come back, and I believe it will in some capacity, in some way. A lot of things are being thrown around, but it'd be interesting to see how the league handles that part of it with the AC. How that's going to play out. Over in the East, it seems pretty much solidified, but over in the West, there's a lot of hope with teams that are chasing Memphis, and then knowing that Memphis had the most difficult schedule in the league going down the stretch.
Eddie, I want to finish my questions at least with another actual basketball question for right now. Buddy Hield has been kind of a paradox here in Sacramento over the last couple of years with the coaching change. Luke Walton moved him during the season to 6-man role, and that's something that Dave Yeager actually talked about, wanted to do last year, but it just didn't fly. Buddy wants to be a starter, and I think we all understand the psychology behind that. When you retired, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you had the record and still might for most points off the bench. You understand completely what it's like to go from starter to 6-man type. I'll ask you two things here. Do you see Buddy as a 6-man type, and what does Buddy need to do to embrace that role mentally?
Yeah, well, it's a process. It's not easy. Matter of fact, I was in Sacramento my first year when they decided to start bringing me off the bench. Phil Johnson, Joe Axelson was a GM. My situation is different. Buddy Hield got paid first, and then they said okay. My situation was Joe Axelson didn't want to pay me, and so he put me on the bench. And it could have gone one or two ways. I was very upset about it, but I knew I had not too much control. And so I just embraced it, and it was like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to still lead the team in scoring, even if you bring me off the bench. And that's what I did that first year in Sacramento when they decided to do that. With Buddy Hield, he's in a situation where he's not going to win. And I think that's what a lot of players have to understand. You're not going to win. I mean, you got to embrace it, or you got to prove them wrong. And I think Buddy Hield is more than capable of doing that. It's not really if you start, it's if you finish. And that was always my mindset. Even though I became a 6-man, I was normally finishing games. I wasn't on the bench at the end of games. I was actually in there in the fourth quarter finishing games. And it really helped me because now I was going against second-line defenders. And trust me, I didn't mind going against first-line. But if you want to put me against second-line defenders, that's easy points I can get. I'll go get them. And that was just my mindset, to just go ahead and do that. And Buddy Hield needs to embrace that, or he needs to become a better defender. I mean, bottom line, he's got to be able to do other things. He's got to be a better rebounder, and all those things. I had an argument. I was second on the team in rebounding when they put me on the bench. I mean, so it's like, why you put me on the bench? I had an argument. Buddy Hield doesn't have that argument. He can score. He's a tremendous three-point shooter, but he's got to offer a little bit more. And I think Luke Walton, became disenchanted that he wasn't giving that to him. And he sent them a message. And Buddy Hield has to get over it. Look, they paid him. So what are you mad about? You got to go ahead and do your job. And if he doesn't, then he'll find himself on another team. I mean, and it's going to be hard to trade him if he becomes a malcontent and fights it. So, I mean, he's got to understand that if he wants to have success in this league, you can't win every battle. And if you try to win the battle, it might take time for you to get back in that position to where you can have success. And so it's going to be a tough road for him, but he's a tremendous player. He's a tremendous scorer. He's an all-around good dude. And I think he just can't embrace himself on the fact that a coach is trying to change his philosophy within his game.
Well, Eddie, it was great to catch up with you. Fantastic insight. We hope you stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you sometime soon. Thank you so much, Eddie.
All right, guys. My pleasure.